With the college football playoff committee set to convene in just a couple of days and week 10 on the horizon, there are just a few matchups this week that could really make the pollsters give the CFP committee a lot to think about when they convene. However, there are also a lot of teams that are not necessarily in the top 25 that look to stake their claim into moving into the top 25 and could possibly have an impression on the college football playoff committee without the assistance of the AP poll. Want to find out what the matchups are for week 10 and how they can possibly make a huge difference in the selection committee? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on another edition of Gridiron Gab Triple Option. As always, you are joined by the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And guys, I must tell you, it's getting real. It is getting real. And guys, I got to tell you, I'm enjoying what's going on, not only on our channel, but what is going on in the landscape of college football, because it has been nothing short of absolute pandemonium and fun, and that is exactly the way Mr. CeeLo likes it. And I'm sure my buddy Brad loves it that way, and you can't argue against the fun that we've had and the amount of things that have gone on. But as I said, we got to get to business. And we got to get to week number 10, as your boy did not do what he was supposed to do, which was get my opinions out on the polls and whatnot. I've been lazy, guys. I'm not even going to lie to you. This cold weather's got me in a type of way. Not necessarily sick, but just been lazy. You know what I mean? And needless to say, I've got my buddy Brad putting his picks in, and I've got to get mine in as well, as we are going to go down the games of this week. But let's get started with, we're not going to go in and do a huge breakdown of each game, because really these games are not really as exciting as the last couple of weeks. But we're going to get a couple of games probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks that are going to be really good. I wouldn't even venture to say next week, but I know Brad's equally as interested in a certain game at the this week, and I've actually got it as one of my upset watch or upset alert. Memphis 7-1. Memphis faces off and goes to Rice. I don't think there's going to be a huge issue with Memphis being able to take down Rice, but I do think that Rice crowd in Texas is going to be a huge issue for them. So I think ultimately they better be careful, because it is on Halloween night, you guys. And if any of you know anything about Halloween night football games, they're not to be taken lightly. So Rice better be weary. Then we move on to number 1 Ohio State, undefeated number 1 Ohio State, faces off against the 3-4 Penn State Nittany Lions, whom have dropped 4 straight. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I do think Ohio State wins this game, but don't be surprised if this game is close early. So, Penn State's got nothing to lose, and they like nothing better than to knock out one of their rivals or give them their first win, or make this a signature win for what has been such a horrible, campaign for them. But if you could do anything to salvage anything out of 2025, it would be to knock off the Ohio State Buckeyes. Then we look at number 10, Miami visiting SMU. One of Brad's favorite football teams. Oh, by the way, he also took Memphis and Ohio State. I appreciate that, bud. As well as he's got the next pick here. We've got number 10 Miami against unranked 5-3 SMU. Now, I'm going to say it like this. Do I honestly think that SMU can pull the upset in Dallas? I do think so, but I think it's going to be highly unlikely. Now, my counterpart there, Brad, says he's taking SMU. I can't take SMU because they don't. You look at Rashard Smith, and it's kind of like he was like the guy that they were missing they're missing this year. So, you still got Jennings, but I still just think that Rashard Smith was the guy that made this offense so unstoppable. And I think ultimately Miami's defense is going to get back to doing what it does best. I think they're going to run the ball. And, like I said, they're going to continue to get back to that form that they had early on in the season that made them the team that everybody did not want to play. But we're both split. He's going SMU. I'm going Miami. Not by much, though. Next, we got number 22 Houston at 7-1, facing off against West Virginia at 2-6. Now, I'm not looking for much out of Houston on this one. I think Houston's going to try to get out of this game. They're going to try to blow it up and get it done and try to get out of there. So, I'm taking Houston as well as Brad. He's taking Houston as well. Next, we've got number 16 Louisville at 6-1, facing off against the 3-5 Virginia Tech Hokies in Blacksburg. As I said, I'm looking at Louisville. They're playing really strong. They understand what they have to do. They know what they still are in this. They are still in this matchup for a shot at the ACC title. They're not gonna go without a fight. I think Louisville is able to pull this off, and I think Virginia Tech makes it a game probably for a quarter and a half. Then we got number 2 Indiana going up against the 4-3 Maryland Terrapins. I think right now Indiana's on such a roll. They've got Kirk Cignetti has this team playing at such a high level, running the football exceptionally well. And, contrary to popular opinion, this team is not blowing you out by throwing it all over the yard. They really use the pass to set up the run. And it's very impressive how they've got it. You really think that this team's going to throwing it all over the field, but they're really just running it down your throat. But either way, myself and Brad have Indiana going on and staying undefeated against a Maryland team that has some juice to its offense as well as a very heavy ruckus environment when you go into it. And then there's the one that Brad is exceptionally interested in, the Florida-Georgia game, the world's largest cocktail party. Look, we can say what we want. Ultimately, the Gators, this is on a neutral site. I think ultimately the Georgia Bulldogs are trying to prove something. They don't like the Gators. We all know this. I don't think Florida's got, probably Lagway is going to come out and do the unexpected. Do I think they're going to win this game? I don't think they will win this game. But it would not surprise me if Florida was able to hang a few scores and Lagway looked like a All-American out there. Because I think ultimately that's what this matchup entails. It entails a lot of animosity, and it's going to entail a lot of guys going out there trying to break their necks to get this game. And of course, Brad took Georgia. And then we've got the 5-2 Notre Dame Fighting Irish facing off against the 1-7 Boston College Eagles up in BC. Now, what you want to see about Notre Dame? They're still 5-2, and they're pushing their way into the national spotlight. Enough so that people are starting to take notice, to the point that I did a show on my other channel about the hate that Notre Dame gets for being independent. Well, the reality of it is, it's well-deserved. And Notre Dame is arguably one of the best teams in the country that nobody talks about because they've got 2 losses. But then they come in with Boston College, a football team that had a crazy victory a couple weeks ago. It may have been last week. Was it last week or a couple weeks ago?
Bruh.
Stupid.
But there are so many people that are looking at this team and saying they can't get it done. Well, I will challenge you. Any team that can take Texas A&M to the wire, we already saw what they did to LSU. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is a team you do not want to play. Them being Notre Dame, them being Texas A&M. Mr. CeeLo has a large respect factor for the A&M Aggies. Nobody else except them and the Irish. Number 13, Texas Tech Red Raiders and the Kansas State Wildcats. This is a game that concerns me for the fact that Texas Tech is not sure that they're going to have their original starting quarterback. And they lost their backup last week for the season. The question is, he's close to being 100% from what they say. But they're not sure where he is. They're not sure where he's at physically. Now, Texas Tech is favored by 7.5. But y'all do recall, Kansas State is tough at home. They will beat ranked teams in their building. Manhattan is no place to go. It is absolutely not a place you want to go to because, needless to say, when you look at the way Kansas State plays, they always play really good defense and they play really strong on the offensive end running the football. They stick to what they do. It is what they do. And the one thing Kansas State is not going to do is they're not going to deviate from their game plan no matter who they play. When I see this Kansas State team, I see a team that loves to run the football, and then you got Avery Johnson that's thrown for 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but you just talked about the running game. Yeah, but Avery Johnson is one of those guys. He can run the ball as well. But then what he does is, along with this Kansas State offense, they use the run to set up his ability to throw the football. Now, when you look here, you say, okay, he's thrown for 1792. That's overly impressive. That's just not overly impressive, but you know what? You get the picture. 1,800 yards just about in 8 games. That's over 200 yards. And then this guy can run the ball. And you look at this team and you say, okay, this is not wildly crazy, but they also play the style of ball that basically complements their tough style of defense. And you got to look at where Texas Tech's coming from. Texas Tech is a very good pass rush team led by a potential first-round pick, Bailey. And you throw in the sacks by Romello Height. Gab out to you, old buddy. Hometown gab out. Morton coming back is going to be paramount as to whether or not they can win this game. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If you let Kansas State stick around in this game, they will win this game. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Texas Tech will win this game if Kansas State does not control the clock. Those are the keys to this game. Control the clock, run the ball. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I picked the upset on this one because I don't know what Morton's status is going to be. And I see Brad picked Texas Tech. I'm going Kansas State on this one because it's not easy to walk into Manhattan and just win. It's not. I don't care who they're playing. But they always manage to win the games at home. I don't know how they do it. They just do it. It's just Kansas State. Then we've got another game that I'm calling the upset on. Number 15, Virginia facing off against California. Now, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, California's gotten blown out in a lot of games. Yeah, but I'll say this. California is a football team that does exceptionally well when they play in Berkeley. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you just always taking the home team. No, I'm not always taking the home team. I'm justifiably taking the home team when the opponent looks like it could be shook. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, they took that game in Tallahassee. Well, it's starting to show that maybe, just maybe, Florida State was running on fumes. I'm just saying, right? Florida State hasn't been the same football team since their first loss to Virginia. And I'm saying Virginia's been riding a major high. And traveling 3 time zones over, all the way to Berkeley, to play at 345. could be a problem, and they're only 5-point favorites, 5.5-point favorites. So, take it for what it's worth. Brad's got Virginia. So, let's not get too caught up in it. Then we got number 7 Ole Miss facing off against South Carolina. I'm not even going to talk about this. I'm not. Because here's the reality. South Carolina decided, we're going to play Alabama. They're going to do the same thing this week. Lay a dud. Easy pick. Ole Miss is going to take this. They'd be lucky if they don't lose this game by 3 touchdowns. And I'm talking about South Carolina. Then you got number 21 Michigan facing off against 2-6 Purdue. It's in the big house, and Purdue, although they were showing some promise, they haven't been able to stop anybody, and they haven't been able to score. Well, they've scored okay. They've scored in bunches, but I'm not sold on them being able to go into the big house and handle Michigan. I'm taking Michigan in a blowout. Another one of these interesting games, and it'd be 8-0, undefeated 8-0 Georgia Tech against 4-4 NC State. Now, I think it was 2 weeks ago, they faced off against Notre Dame. Was it 3 weeks ago? I think it was 3 weeks ago. Faced off against Notre Dame. And this is a high-powered offense that got shut down. Kind of like what Notre Dame did to Arkansas. But you can't forget that NC State is still a powerhouse of an offense, which is a major contrast from what they've been in the past. They've had great defensive players that got selected in the second and third rounds of the NFL draft, and they've always had some good linebackers. But this year, you've had some issues. So, needless to say, I don't see. I think if this gets into a shootout, I think this favors Georgia Tech, because what happens is you get into that time of possession and that time control, ball control, and when Georgia Tech can do that, it leaves your offense hoping for chances to get the ball. And when that happens, that's never a good sign if you're an offense that wants extra opportunities. And then with Haynes King's Heisman push, whom I really, really like. I really like Georgia Tech, and I like Haynes King. So I really am going that route of Georgia Tech, even though it would not surprise me if NC State keeps this thing close for about 2.5 to 3 quarters. We got, and then this one you look at, it's kind of a toss-up. It's going to be between 2 Big Ten teams that if they can get this win, it'll put them back in the top 25, but for one team, it could mean a possibility of getting back in to the possible college football playoff. And that would be the USC Trojans. The Trojans have a favorable schedule with, I believe, Oregon and Washington still left on the schedule. And if they can pull out a win in Lincoln against Nebraska and Matt Rule, this would be huge. As we know, Jaden Maiava has been one of the top quarterbacks in the country, along with Malachi Lemon, one of the best wide receivers in the country. But then Dylan Raiola of the Nebraska Cornhuskers has something to say about that. Hey, I've been good too. But the problem for Nebraska has been their defense has kind of, flown south on them, literally. And meanwhile, Nebraska's offense has been having to carry this team, and that's not a good omen you want for this team, not a Matt Rule team. Defense is supposed to dictate how this game is going to go when they win. And that hasn't been the case. And the way it looks, when you look at how USC is built, this is a team that is built, regardless of what you saw in the game against Notre Dame, this is a team that is built to run the ball and throw it all over the field. A very dangerous team when you don't make them one-dimensional. Now, the question is, can Nebraska make them one-dimensional and take advantage of it? I don't think they have the personnel in the secondary to make them pay when they throw it. So with that, I look for USC to pull the upset by a small margin, because I think that Lincoln, Nebraska crowd is going to they're going to keep USC at bay. It would not surprise me if Nebraska is leading this game for a large part of this game. Okay, now let us look back at the games that Mr. CeeLo feels is going to be the big ones. Starting with the Cincinnati-Utah game. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, Utah is a very tough team to beat at home. And when you start talking about how this team operates, they like to run the football. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. This is a team that loves to run the football. And then you look at Sorsby, the quarterback for Cincinnati. This is a guy that has thrown 20 touchdowns and 1 interception. and he's thrown for over 1,800 yards. I must admit that when I look at this team, I don't think of passing yards when I think of this team. When you look around and you say, okay, what do the Cincinnati Bearcats do well? They run the ball efficiently, and they don't necessarily run play action, but what they do is they get you misdirected on a lot of throws, and they try to use their running game to set up their passing game. Now, I know that's really cliche, but then when you look at Utah and you got Dampier and you've got Parker, the running back, this is a football team that they live and die by their quarterback run and their running back run. They don't really throw the ball like that. You look at it, Dampier, he's thrown for 1,300 yards this year, almost 14. But they rely on the run game and that stifling defense, which is the Utah Utes trademark. They don't want to score a whole lot of points. They score a lot of points by stopping teams and creating turnovers to facilitate their offense. They're a real simple, old school kind of team. Take care of the football and create turnovers for their offense and short fields. That's what they want to do. Now with Cincinnati, to me, this game is going to be all about whether or not they can take advantage of opportunities that they get. Now, I'm not talking about turnovers. I'm talking about when they get Utah to go 3 and out. Because Utah is prone to going 3 and out and trying to control the pace of the game. But can Cincinnati take advantage of the opportunities? Let's say the crowd gets quiet. But ultimately, Cincinnati's going to have to quiet this crowd down. If they can get the Salt Lake crowd quiet, this bodes trouble for the Utes, because then they can get their running game going and they can get that passing attack going. It's not what you would call a huge equalizer, but it's one of those that their running game is to keep people honest. Not like they throw it all over the field, but they don't run it. They're a very balanced offense. And when you really look at how Cincinnati gets it done, they get it done with their defense as well. So really, Utah has to take care of the ball too. I think ultimately the team that wins the turnover battle is going to win this game. And so with that, I am going to take the hometown Utah Utes. They get the upset. So I am calling for the upset. Then we look at number 14 Tennessee hosting the number 18 Oklahoma Sooners. Now a lot of people are going to question me and ask me, who's your favorite quarterback in this? Actually, I don't have a favorite quarterback. I actually have a favorite player. And that would be Chaz Brazel. I love this guy. To me, he reminds me of that Deontay kid that they had last year that's playing for the Raiders right now. I can't remember his last name. Is it Tompkins? I'm not sure. But I loved him. And I thought Josh Heupel figured something out. He figured something out that, hey, maybe I need to make this guy my dude. Dude's got 43 grabs, 740 yards. He darn near has the same average per catch as Deontay did. Except this year, it's like his quarterback has enough. His quarterback Aguilar has enough sense to say, maybe I need to get him the ball. I said that when they played Georgia. The dude lit Georgia up. And Georgia just kept leaving him one-on-one. But here's the issue. Unlike the Georgia game, where they stopped going to him, they have not stopped going to him. And Aguilar has basically said in a nutshell, you're going to have to make me stop going to this dude. Aguilar's got 23-44 on the year in yardage, and he's got 18 TDs and 6 picks. But here's the thing, those 2,344 yards. You look at what this kid has been able to do. He's averaging almost 300 yards a game. And what I really like about the way this team is going all over the field is when you look at Bishop, who's got 91 carries, 9 touchdowns at 652 yards a game. That's impressive. They put up a lot of points, but Tennessee's biggest problem is in the biggest games, they can't get it done. They do not have a quality win. And not because of John Mateer, I'm not saying that at all. But I think ultimately, this is going to be a game of defense. And Tennessee's defense has not shown me that they're very good. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Bailey's got 4.5 sacks. Yeah, but the guy with the most tackles on Oklahoma has 43. They don't have one guy in Carter making majority of the tackles. You got a bunch of good tacklers on this Oklahoma defense. This Oklahoma defense is fast. They're aggressive. They're very good at tackling. Every now and again, you'll have a tackle or two that is missed by this Tennessee defense, but you're not going to see that on a regular basis. And I get it. John Mateer's coming back from injury, and his numbers are not overly impressive. But I look at the scrambling ability of John Mateer. He ain't going to throw horrible forever. And the reality of it is, to me, he's a cheap version of Haynes King. He is due to have another game like he did against Michigan, even though it was interceptions thrown in that. But he was exceptional in that. Arguably, this is a team that felt like they probably had the game in against Ole Miss. Granted, it was in their building, and Ole Miss played a great game. But you're not going to see this team. A lot of people will say, okay, well, let's just toss it in. They ain't going to toss it in. See, they got Tennessee this week. Then they got to go to Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. Look, they get a bye. They're going to throw it all on the table. They're not fixing to give this thing up because in their eyes, if they can get 2 of these last 4 games, they feel like they could argue their way into the college football playoff. And I can't say that they couldn't. Now, a lot of you will say, well, if they lost 4 games, let's say you beat Tennessee, lose to Alabama, beat Missouri, and beat LSU. Now, I will say this. If you were to lose to Tennessee, beat Alabama, Missouri, and LSU, that Alabama win would go a long way, no matter how far you fall down. Just saying. But I am taking Oklahoma for the win against Tennessee and give Tennessee their 3rd loss, which would not put them out, but it would be real close because of in my opinion, the bias of the college football playoff committee. I think Mateer gets a late touchdown run, and that's what's going to be the difference in the game. And finally, we go to the game which I deem as the matchup of the week. And I know a lot of you are going to say, what? This one? Well, because ultimately, Vanderbilt's 7-1 and the Texas Longhorns are 6-2. Now, we have no word on Arch Manning yet. But I still think that the Texas Longhorns are going to win this game. And a lot of you are going to wonder why I am saying this. Ultimately, I've heard a lot of reports that Arch is not going to play. I've heard several reports that, the senior's going to have to go. Look, I like Diego Pavia. I think he's a good player. I think he's a tier under Haynes King. I think Haynes King is... I don't think Diego Pavia has the ability to throw for 300. And I know a lot of people are going to get ticked off. But we've seen Haynes King do it. What impresses me about Haynes King over Diego Pavia is the ability he can go out there and put up video game numbers. What I mean by that, 300 yards passing, 100 yards on the ground. Diego Pavia could give you 100 yards on the ground. The question is, can he give you 300 in the air? And I think that's what's going to take in this game. Because this Texas defense is finally starting to find its groove. Simmons now leads the team with 7 sacks. This was a dude that was a high projected NFL pick, and it took him over the last couple of games before he's really gotten it going. And then you got to look, this offensive line for the Longhorns has not gotten going. And that's why you see Weisner with only 263, and they arguably have one of the best running back tandems in the country. But they haven't been able to get going because the offensive line has not found a groove. And you look at where this team is, the top receiver for this Vanderbilt team is Stowers. Stowers has got 31 catches, 397 yards. And a lot of the reason why when you see a quarterback has a lot of receptions to his tight end is because he either does not have the patience to scan the field, or your coaches realize you don't have the patience to scan the field, or they understand the idea that you are a quarterback that wants to use your legs and your mobility. more than you want to use your arm. That's a skill that you have to develop if you're a scrambling quarterback. You've seen Lamar Jackson. You've seen Haynes King do it at times. If he could ever develop that, if he would have ever developed that, it would have made him twice as dangerous. But he just never did that. But with that said, I think Texas is on a roll. I think possibly that run woke them up, regardless of who's playing quarterback. I think this team is ready to make a huge run. I think they're salivating. That crowd in Austin is ready. They're going to get it. And they're going to come back into the college football playoff conversation with an upset of the Vanderbilt Commodores. What? I do think Diego Pavia has a pretty good game. I just don't think it's going to be enough. And what I mean by that is I think ultimately this is going to be a situation where Pavia is going to self-destruct like he did in Tuscaloosa with those red zone picks. You cannot have those. I think Texas's defense gets the better of them. And I think ultimately, whether Arch plays or not, this is not going to matter. I think Texas is going to be able to attempt to run the football. I think they're going to find creative ways. I think Sark finds creative ways. And I even think there's a couple of throws going to be down the field because Vanderbilt hasn't shown they can cover the pass. They've shown they can get to the quarterback, and they've shown they can stop the run. But I think ultimately they're going to be able to run it on the outside, and they're going to be able to take shots down the field. And I think this RFK crowd is going to get to them. So I got the Longhorns in an upset. And honestly, I'm looking at this game and I'm saying, as Brad took Tennessee, and of course he took Tech and took Michigan, I know I messed it all up. He also took Vandy in this game. He took Vandy on the road. I can't do that, bro. So needless to say, we'll be looking and seeing whose picks hit what. But guys, let me know what you think. Put your picks down in the comments as well, and tell me if I'm crazy or I'm just plain stupid for thinking the way I'm thinking. Also, make sure if you join the show, you put your name down in the comments. Also, make sure that if you make a comment, be nice. You know, if you disagree, just be nice about it. Make sure you go to the Facebook page and group, Gridiron Gab Triple Option. Make sure you join as well as add us on your friend list. And then finally, make sure you go over to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all my in-game shenanigans during the weeks. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.